Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh, life could be a dream. Shaboom, and I'll take you on a teleport and above. The only one that you love. Life could be a dream. Shadoom a doom a doom a doom a doo doo doom. Hello everyone, my name is Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we are starting the new book, which is exciting. The book is titled Bunny Call. Yes, it's a bunny and he calls your number. Or maybe it's a bunny that's been called. Ooh, who knows? But we're back to the Five Nights at Freddy's series instead of being in the Minecraft series, which still breaks my heart a little bit. But it doesn't really matter. No one else can see. Nothing really matters. But yeah. So, today, we are doing this. And, yeah. Shall we begin with the first book in this series, Bunny Call. The sun erupted from behind the low-hanging gray clouds and nearly blinded Bob. He squinted, lowered, and flipped down the visor. He slowed to maneuver to a minivan around the millionth sharp curve on the seemingly endless winding road carving its way through thickly forested mountains. That's just great, Bob thought. The only thing he'd been looking forward about this trip was the predicted rainy weather. His family was bummed about it, but he was secretly gleeful. Rain meant the flurry of activities would be canceled and he'd be left in peace to do a little fishing, take naps, and read a book. "Honey, look at that," Bob's wife, Wanda, sang out. "Son! Oh, is that what that is?" She playfully smacked his shoulder. "Hand me my sunglasses," Bob said. Bob took his eyes from the road for a couple of seconds and watched Wanda lean forward to dig the sunglasses out of the glove box. He admired her shiny auburn curls and the soft contours of her profile. Wanda was petite, pale, and freckled, with small features. Even after 12 years of marriage and 3 kids, she was still the pretty, perky cheerleader he'd fallen for when they were seniors in high school. The only noticeable difference was her clothes, having traded her pom-poms and pleated shirts for the latest fashion. Today she was wearing high-waist short black shorts and netted lavender top over a black tank. The top fell off one shoulder. It looked great. The eyes back on the road, Bob put on his sunglasses. When he took a couple of seconds to check himself out in the rear-view mirror, a couple of seconds was all it took to confirm he didn't look like a jock he'd been in high school. Gone were the long, thick black hair, the sharp jawline, the mischievous dark brown eyes, and the wide, carefree grin. In their place were thinning, graying short hair, soft jowl, tired eyes, and lips clamped to the downward curve. Most of his muscles had gone wherever too much of his hair had gone. He didn't have enough time to work out, and it showed. Bob quickly shifted his attention to the drive. He pulled the minivan into a right lane as the road started climbing upward, and the 2 lanes turned into 3, creating a passing lane. 2 spotty sedans pulled out from behind Bob to zip right by. Bob sighed. "I miss my MG." Wanda glanced at him and wouldn't take the bait. She never did. He talked him into selling his beloved MG when they had their second child. He'd regretted it ever since. He missed everything about that car. It even smelled the distant motor oil leather seat smell it always made. It made him feel manly and young. Bob shook his head and tried not to inhale the scent in the minivan. Peanut butter, dirty socks, and grape juice. "Guess what, everyone?" Wanda called out. "What?" the kids chorused. "They've changed the forecast." Wanda did a little happy dance in her seat as she looked at her phone screen. Bob was a little surprised the phone still had service. It felt like they were thousands of miles from civilization. "Instead of 80% chance of steady rain," Wanda said, "it now says 20%. We're going to have sun. Happy sun, smiley sun. Some come out to play," Bob's 3-year-old daughter, Cindy, began singing off key. "Bright sun, friendly sun. It's a beautiful day," Wanda joined in with Cindy. Cindy giggled and started in on the granning melody again. Her curly auburn pigtails bounced as she bopped through the song. What Cindy lacked in singing talent, she made up in cuteness and enthusiasm. Freckles and happy grin won over everyone who met her. "Come on, let's all sing," Wanda called out. 7-year-old Aaron sat next to Cindy in the car seat. He was excited to be growing out of soon. He shared his sister's freckles and auburn hair, as well as her energy, and predictably joining in the singing. Tyler, 10, lanky and dark, with broad shoulders that telegraphed the athletic build he'd have soon, lounged in his own space, with the third row of seats. Tyler liked to set himself apart, because he was the oldest. But he was still young enough to want to be included in family fun. He still loved game night, movie night, Sunday picnics, and sing-alongs. Now, he did this part by providing a beatbox backup. Happy son, smile son, come out to play, Bob's family sang. Come on, Bob, Wanda caroled, sing. Bob grunted, ground his teeth while his family went through the two lines at least half a dozen times. Give me some classic rock and I'll belt it out with the best of them, Bob thought. But he wasn't going to sing about the stinking sun. Bob kept his lips pressed together and his eyes on the road, where a still wet pavement was glistening in the nearly shining sun. The double yellow line was tethered, pulling a minivan inexorably toward his destination. Bob might be driving, but he had no control. Not really. When was the last time he had control? Before Tyler was born, when he and Wanda married, before they met, since he was born. Was control an illusion? Finally, the song wound down, and Aaron asked the age-old question, Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Cindy parroted. Not how much farther? Are we there yet? Wanda asked Bob. Not you too, Bob said with a sigh. Wanda laughed, and she looked up at the map and unfolded and answered her own question. 27 more miles, she said. Bob found it endearing how Wanda insisted map reading was more fun than using a GPS. It was one of the many quirks he loved about her. Making up songs, like a dumb song, was one of the many quirks he wasn't so crazy about. Harping continually on family togetherness was one of the quirks he truly hated. When Tyler had been young, it wasn't so bad. Taking his son on fishing trips and ball games was no trouble at all. Even the hikes Wanda had planned were fun. When Aaron was born, the family activities had gotten more complicated, but they still were doable. Adding Cindy to the mix had raised the chaos factor tenfold. Cindy wasn't a brat or anything. She was actually a really sweet child, but her energy level was through the roof, and for some reason that was all the amp up the boys. Lately, it seemed like Bob had never gotten the peace and quiet, even at night. He could be sure that one or more kids would end up diving into the bed with Wanda and him at some point, every night without fail. Where Bob used to have time for himself, now's the time belonged to everyone except him. His work took a slice, his kids took a slice, Wanda took a slice. Never used to begrudge the time Wanda took, but that was because she wanted time for fun things. Now all she wanted was time for put one of the many family man hats: coach, teacher, playmate, cook, handyman, driver, shopper, janitor, money earner. A couple of months before, Wanda's best friend had told Wanda about Cat Patina. Patina was a Native American name that means rich, Wanda read from the Nearly magazine thick brochure describing the place. We named our family exclusive Cat Patina because the man whose family was indeed rich, he kept reading. Isn't that beautiful, Bob? He said absently. Bob had thought Wanda had been reading about the place the same way he'd read about Greenland and Norway and Albania. Wanda wanted to travel, and she loved to research destinations, but it turned out Wanda was serious about Cat Patina. Why don't we just send the kids to camp, and we can stay home and hang out in the hammock, Bob asked. When Wanda kept talking about it, he just grabbed her and nuzzled her neck. Just the two of us. Wanda wasn't buying it. Neither did she approve of the idea, so they get a nice hotel and plop the kids by the pool so they could have time alone together. He finally pulled out all the stops and suggested a high-priced resort that promised to entertain kids while the parents lounged under big umbrellas and white sandy beaches. Bob wanted to relax. Wanda wanted something else. So here he was, on his way to Camp Patina. Bob glanced in the rearview mirror to find out why it was suddenly so noisy in the minivan. Now all three of his kids were arranging some elaborate hand-clapping game. Wanda leaned toward Bob. Zoe and I used to camp when we were little girls, he told him in the tense time. The only downside was that he had to be away from Mama and Daddy. Isn't it awesome we don't have to put our kids through that? We'll all be together for a full week. Awesome. If Wanda noticed his sarcasm, she ignored it. A deer ran across the road in front of the minivan, and Bob hit the brakes. Thankfully, the minivan hadn't been going very fast. It couldn't. It had no pick-me-up for steep grades, especially in high altitudes. Even though he easily missed the deer, Bob felt his blood pressure go up. Can you keep it down? Bob bellowed at his kids. I'm trying to drive up here. Momentary silence. Do you think there are fairies in here, Daddy? Cindy asked him. He wasn't staring out the side window. The dense forest crowded on the side of the road. Why not? Bob said. Wanda told him over and over that Cindy was extra sensitive. He could never burst her bubble. If she wanted to believe there were fairies, it's his job to go along with it. Wanda changed the subject. So what are we going to do when we get there? He asked the kids. Bob groaned. Not this again. All three of them started shouting at once. Big bubbles, talent show, karaoke, scavenger hunt, puppets, paint rocks, trampoline, dancing, hula hooping, gymnastics, Cindy called out. Trampoline, archery, horseback, riding, canoeing, tubbing, mountain biking, hiking, Aaron shouted. Agility, kayaking, diving, sailing, swimming, tug-of-war, running, ping-pong, volleyball, bungee jumping, zip lining, Tyler yelled. Wanda laughed delightfully. She did this on purpose to spin up the kids. Bob was tempted to cover his ears with both his hands, but obviously he couldn't do that and drive. What about fishing, he thought. Bob loved to fish. Wanda hated it. But Wanda could manipulate with the best of them if she needed to. She used Bob's love and fishing against them when he was talking to him into this trip. When it became clear that Bob was going to Capatina, whether he liked it or not, Bob had comforted himself with the idea he could wander off and fish on his own. That's when the truth came out. Well, you won't get to go off by yourself, Wanda admitted. They have a fishing tournament, and maybe you could talk the boys into entering one with you. Why did everything have to be so organized? The kids kept firing out activities. Bob figured they'd have to stay for about 5 years to do so, everything the kids wanted to do, and they were staying for only a week. Only? Yeah, right. 7 days was an eternity. 7 days of fun and frolic, Wanda kept saying to him while he was getting everyone ready for the trip. She made it sound like it was supposed to be a good thing. How was Bob going to survive it? Campatina, Bob had to admit, was a great-looking place, or it could have been if it wasn't infested with noisy families. Nestled in a narrow valley between two tall wooden mountain ranges topped with a craggy rock, Campatina hugged the edges of a massive, meandering, deep blue freshwater lake, Lake Hamadi. According to the camp brochure, Hamadi was a Cherokee for forest water. That would have been an appropriate name for a lake in the woods, except there's a fact that the camp is nowhere near Cherokee territory. When Bob pointed that out to Wanda, she didn't seem to care. Assessed via the 10-mile dirt and gravel road that led to the highway at the bottom of the steep grade, Capatina didn't announce itself until you would be really upon it. Then, an understated rustic sign nearly hidden behind maple tree reassured travelers that they were in the right place. Capatina, just ahead. The camp itself was as picturesque as its surroundings. The main lodge was a huge log cabin flanked by two stone chimneys and an ample porch that ran along the front of the side of the buildings. The structure was covered with a shiny green metal roof. The camp's 35 cabins looked like lodges. Children, little log stone buildings were scattered near the main lodge like baby ducks swimming around their mom. Bob's family were stated to be cabin number 17. Cabin Nutta. Nutta apparently was an Algonquian name meaning strong. Bob's boys thought that Nutta was a hilarious name. We're going to stay in the nut house, Tyler told all his friends when they got into their assignment. Don't mess with my Nutta, Aaron kept saying. Will it have lots of peanuts in it, Daddy? Cindy had asked several times. Wanda said, we'll get nutty. Rob was around, I'm going nuts. He thought the name was idiotic because, again, the Algonquian tribe lived nowhere near here either. The owners of Campatina seemed to reach into the swirling vortex of Native American names and randomly picked a few. Campatina's parking lot was a shady tree-guarded gravel rectangle with the main lodge. When Bob pulled the minivan into the lot, he was reminded you couldn't drive your car to your cabin. That would ruin the ambience, Wanda said when Bob complained about it. It's excruciating back pain from lugging all our crap also part of the experience, Bob asked. Wanda smiled at him and applied fresh lip gloss. Well, I guess that answers that question, Bob thought. Now that he stood here next to the minivan crammed with luggage and toys, not to mention cargo carrier stuffed with some more of the same, Bob's back started throbbing just at the idea of getting everything into the cabin. And of course, Cabin Nutta was the farthest one in the parking lot. It's right on the edge of the woods, Bob, Wanda had gushed when the cabin was assigned to him. Oh, joy and bliss, Bob said. And there they were. One woman's heaven was another man's hell. Bob looked up at the traitorous sky, which has traded its clouds for vast expanses of pale blue. The sun was almost currently overhead, and it shined out of ferocity. Bob figured it was all at least 80 degrees, and the air felt heavy and muggy. Their feet crunching over the gravel, Wanda had his kids practically dancing around the car. Cindy was spinning in circles, Aaron was doing some kind of dance, and Tyler was drumming the minivan's hood. Wanda was calling out, hi, and how are you to everyone within earshot. Look, Utterflea, Cindy squealed. Bob followed the direction of Cindy's plump, pointed finger and saw a monarch butterfly disappear into a clump of salmonberry bushes. He flashed back into his childhood, remembering when his dad took him camping. They picked salmonberries to go and feed the fresh trout dinner. Come on, Dad, Aaron said. We have to get signed up or we'll miss out on all the good stuff. Bob, why don't you go take care of all of that? Wanda handed Bob 4 sheets of paper covered with lists. He knew the list were activities each child had chosen and the ones Wanda had decided they'd do as family. He sighed. It was going to take all afternoon to do this. The kids and I will go scope things out and start the meeting people, Wanda said. When we're done with the sign-up, you can bring the stuff to the cabin. Oh, I can? Goody, Bob muttered. What's that, honey? Nothing. Bob watched his family camper off and he didn't move. He wished he couldn't go into the car and drive away. He just looked at the driver's seat, but what would happen if he did that? The sweet scent of wildflowers weird with pungent exhaust smells, but overpowering both, the powerful aromas of Jupiter pine command attention. They made Bob think of a gin and tonic, his favorite drink. It tastes like an evergreen tree, Wanda had said the first time he made her one. After that, she started calling gin and tonic that tree drink, and eventually she shortened it to a tree. Make me a tree, Wanda would say occasionally after the kids were asleep on Friday nights. He could use a tree right about now. Suddenly, he got shoved from behind. A kid yelled, sorry, as Bob staggered into the side of a minivan, clutching in the open row door. he noticed an overweight, sweating, middle-aged man wrestle with multiple duffel bags and suitcases. The man met Bob's eyes, and Bob gave him a sympathetic smile. Then Bob shut the minivan's doors and looked around. He was admittedly sorry for that he did. Taking in the can from behind the driver's seat and watching his family spill over the minivan with uncontained enthusiasm may have been bad enough. Seeing the whole of his purgatory with one wide angle and particularly unbearable, kids ran all over like they'd been in a drug that rendered the senseless, but kept them in perpetual motion. Men were morphing in packs and mules. Sweating dads staggered over under the weight of burdens. Moms were socializing and organizing. In the midst of the chaos, Camp's counselor blew whistles and shouted incomprehensible instructions. Bob tried to decipher what they were saying, but he couldn't. Steeling himself, he approached the ponytailed blonde, blue-eyed counselor. He blew her whistle, and then, was 4 feet away from her, the high-pitched screech catapulted into his ears and zigzagged around his brain for several seconds before he could speak. "Excuse me," he said, "but which way sign up for the activity?" Ridiculously, she blew the whistle again, but this time it was at least a short burst. She followed the shallow light of stairs at one end of the lodge. "Go up those stairs and follow the walkway around the porch. Get in the line, and it will lead you to the sign-up tables inside." She blew the whistle again. Bob's fingers itched to pull the whistle off her neck, but he contained himself. "Thanks," he said with a murderous smile. Bob went up the stairs and found the line of the lodge's front porch. From there, he could see that his family was already setting in. Cindy was holding hands with another girl with one of the black braids and spinning around on a big dock that stretched over a lake. That was it, with the little kids and spinning. Near Cindy, Wanda was talking to a woman, while Bob's boys and another boy took turns trying to skip rocks against the surface of the lake. And there he was, standing in line. He could only take care of paperwork. Story of his life. Bob lost track of how long he waited. Flies droned around his head, and he felt his nose starting to burn. But that teach him to ignore Wanda's advice to put on sunscreen. "It's going to rain," he told her confidently. "You never know," she said. It was amazing how often she did know what he didn't know. Someplace nearby, someone played a guitar. Someplace even nearer, someone ate beef jerky. Bob wrinkled his nose. The smell of it made his stomach roil. Other parents were chatting in line, but Bob kept his head down. For the first time since he'd pulled the minivan out of the driveway, he was able to think about the proposal which he wished he was home working on. He didn't have time to take a week's vacation, and if he did, he sure didn't want to take it running himself ragged down the activities with a bunch of strangers. Honestly, he needed to be alone. Bob turned to watch his family again. Cindy and her new friend were now playing a makeshift game of hopscotch between the lawn and lake, while the boys were trying to balance on the pilings along the edge of the dock. He was sure he was going to hear a splash pretty soon. Bob finally reached the doorway of the lodge. Hard to believe, but it would eventually be in his turn. Curious in spite of himself, he looked around the lodge's interior. It was just a brochure depicted. Exposed log walls, lots of wood, heavy furniture padded the cushions covered in vaguely Native American patterns. Massive buck heads presided over the fireplace, and the chandeliers hanging down from the log roof were made of antlers. This was not the best place to be a deer. Bob took the last peek of his family before he stepped completely into the building. As suspected, the boys fell into the lake. Cindy continued to play hopscotch. Wanda laughed at her sons, only because they were laughing too. If anyone had asked Bob if he loved his family, he would have answered a vehement yes, because he did. But that does not mean he liked them all the time, and lately he'd been liking them less and less. They always wanted something. "Daddy, look at the picture I drew," Cindy would say. "Dad, look, can you throw me the ball to me?" Aaron would ask. "Dad, please help me with my school project," Tyler would beg. "Honey, the garage door's rattling. Please fix that," Wanda would order. Yeah, order. She always said please, but it felt not less than an order than it did when the boss said, "Get that done today, please." Bob was tired of all these requests, all the obligations. He needed to breathe. "It's your turn, dude," someone tapped Bob on the shoulder. He looked around. A young dad who obviously still loved fatherhood stood behind Bob. The dad grinned and pointed over Bob's shoulder. "You're up." The table in front of Bob was a hefty tan woman with super short, dirty blonde hair and smile lines around her eyes. Looked up at him. "Hi, I'm Majorgy." She gave him a big smile and admired her very white, even teeth, while she pointed to the white plastic name tag pinned on her Greek Athena shirt. "Welcome to Camp Athena." "Oh, is that where I am?" She was aiming for dry humor, but apparently he missed his mark. Majorgy's smile faltered. He frowned for a second and said, "Name? Mackenzie." The woman tapped his eyes on the wireless laptop. "Bob, Wanda, Cindy, Aaron, and Tyler?" "That's right." "Okay, let's get you signed up. Have you prepared for a list of activities?" Bob handed the woman Wanda's neat list. The camp offered 112 activities and asked for campers to come prepared with lists of at least 20. Ordered by preference. Wanda's list held 72 activities altogether. Bob wondered what Majority would do with that, but she didn't seem surprised at all. "Perfect," Majority said and began typing. Bob watched her, his jaw clench. One of the objections he had to Camp Athena, in fact, to any summer camp, was the rigidity of the whole thing. He had no issues being outdoors or doing fun things, but doing things on a schedule, following a list that drove him nuts. Ha! Maybe he did belong in Cabin Nutta. Seriously though, didn't get enough schedules and lists to follow that at work. At least at work he was getting paid. Why didn't he get subjected to this crap at home too? Majority stopped typing. I wasn't able to get you into every activity listed, but I managed to get the top 20 for each of your children and for your family as a whole. Awesome juice. Bob enjoyed using that one of Tyler's favorite sayings. Tyler actually meant it when he said it, but Bob's awesome juice meant either that sucks or I could care less. Georgie handed Bob's list back to him, and then looked both ways and behind her before leaning forward. And then she spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Bob heard. Do you want? But the rest was incomprehensible. He leaned forward. I'm sorry? Marjorie leaned forward too. Her breath smelled like chocolate. Do you want to sign up for the bunny call? She asked. He must have misheard her. Bob asked, What's that? Marjorie turned, pointed toward the small rabbit standing in the far corner of the master room, under the antique canoe, hanging in the vaulted ceiling. The rabbit, which looked like bright orange fur, wore a white and black checked vest, yellow white polka dot bow tie, and a black top hat, which was a floppy ear stuck straight up. The rabbit held symbols, like old-fashioned wind-up monkeys used to have. Bob blinked. How did he miss the rabbit he first looked around? It wasn't like missing an anaconda in a pen full of puppies. The rabbit did not belong. It really did not belong. Bob was mesmerized by the rabbit for several seconds. He couldn't tell if the rabbit was a person wearing a costume or one of those creepy animatronic things he'd seen in a couple restaurants his family had visited when he was young. In any case, it wasn't the kind of rabbit that made him want to cuddle up to it. Its eyes were a little too big to be friendly, and they bordered on crazed. Mr. Mackenzie? Bob? Bob blinked. Huh? Majority grinned and winked. Then you sign up for the bunny call. The rabbit over there. His name is Ralpho. We'll visit your cabin. Bob looked at the rabbit. Ralpho. He'll come into your cabin screaming, clashing cymbals, and spinning his head, Majority chuckled. It's really something terrifying to behold. Bob could just imagine it. It's quite the wake-up call, Majority added. Bob didn't get it. Wake-up call? Oh, right, I didn't say. Ralpho makes his rounds between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. During that hour, he'll visit every cabin and signs up for the bunny call. And that's the end of that. Well, that's alright, because next time, reading pages 21 to 40. Will he sign up for the bunny call, or maybe the bunny will be very mad that he didn't and go for him and his family. Who knows? Except I do. Anyways, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Like, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.